It is 6 a.m. in Washington. It's 1 p.m. in Damascus. I'm Monita, Rajpal. This is CNN and World One, live from London. But first, people in the Syrian city of Homs say they are under attack by government forces for a sixth successive day. A member of the opposition says as many as 54 people have been killed this Wednesday. Intermittent reports on what's going on from some of the people caught up in the fighting. This is part of an account from an activist in the city of Homs.
From yesterday to today, I've seen so much. I've seen terrible bodies in the street. We still have some bodies that we can't move. They've been shot by snipers.
That was an opposition activist who we're referring to only as Danny to protect his identity. Russia's foreign minister made a high-profile visit to Damascus on Tuesday. Afterwards, Sergei Lavrov said President Bashar al-Assad was committed to ending the fighting. We want to get more on this story. We are joined by Phil Black in Moscow. But first, let's go to Ivan Watson, who joins us now from Istanbul, for more on what the developments are that are coming out of Syria and what you're able to gauge from what is coming out of Syria today. Ivan?
Monita, the brunt of the Syrian military assault is taking place in the city of Homs, in the center of the country.
Thank you for that, Ivan Watson, there in Istanbul. Let's go to Phil Black, who joins us now from Moscow. If we were to take a look at what is happening in Syria today, Phil, it would seem as though Sergei Lavrov's visit had no impact.
Indeed, Monita, but that's not how he painted it yesterday after he emerged from that meeting with President Assad.
Well, thank you, Phil Black in Moscow. Well, the newspapers around the world have been weighing in on this story for days now. We want to see what they are saying. In Russia, the headline in the Moscow Times, Realpolitik without realism. It's a comment piece that says Russia aims to block any more military interventions, but none will be needed because Assad's regime will eventually be overthrown. That will leave Moscow mourning its lost influence in the region, as well as the end of its lucrative military contracts. Thus, Putin's realpolitik has finally lost its most important attribute: realism. The International Herald Tribune comments on China's support for Russia's stance under the headline, Why Beijing Votes with Moscow. It's an editorial that says, in the eyes of the pragmatic Chinese, the Assad regime is not worth a veto. China apparently decided it was better not to jeopardize relations with the Russians and risk losing Russian support when Beijing might need it in the future. And finally, in the UAE, the National has this headline, a great game in the Middle East plays Syria like a pawn. Again, a comment piece that says Syria's conflict and the standoff over Iran's nuclear program are unfolding against a backdrop of intensified regional and global strategic rivalry marked by the reemergence of old powers and the emergence of new ones, all of which combines to create a Middle East landscape less predictable and more turbulent than it's ever been. The British government says it will not negotiate with Argentina over the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands unless people on the island want it. It follows Tuesday's statement by the Argentinian president. Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner said she'd formally complained to the United Nations about what she calls the British militarization of the South Atlantic. Here's what's behind this war of words. The British-owned Falkland Islands. In 1982, the standoff broke out into open war. Britain drove out an Argentinian military force that had occupied the islands, but Buenos Aires still lays claim to Las Malvinas, as the islands are known to Argentinians. And with the 30th anniversary of the conflict approaching, tensions are escalating again. One reason, according to the Argentinians, is Britain's decision to send one of its most advanced warships to the South Atlantic. The UK says that's simply a routine deployment. Argentina also says Britain's being provocative by sending Prince William, second in line to the throne, to the Falklands as a military helicopter pilot. CNN's Dan Rivers takes the story from there.
Like any other serviceman far from home, Flight Lieutenant William Wales immersed himself in his job immediately.
Just how much oil is at stake? According to the British Geological Society, 4 UK oil companies are planning to drill offshore this year. The white line on the map shows the Falkland Islands exploration area as claimed by Britain. The colored areas show the zones where the companies plan to drill. The green Rockhopper exploration zone is where most of the recent oil discoveries have been made. Morgan Stanley rates 4 of the planned wells among this year's top offshore prospects worldwide. Oil explorers say there could be more than 8 billion barrels of oil there, more than 3 times the UK's oil reserves. You're watching World One, live from London. Tuesday was the biggest day yet for the U.S. presidential race. Busy day in U.S. presidential politics and a great night for Rick Santorum. Republicans in 3 states, in Minnesota, Missouri, and Colorado, voted for the candidate they want to face Barack Obama in November's election. In Minnesota, Rick Santorum was the big winner with 45% of the votes. Ron Paul won 1/4 of the votes. Mitt Romney, the front runner in most previous states, came third with just 17% of the votes. It was closer in Colorado, with Santorum winning again with 40% of Romney's 35%. Well, now Missouri is nicknamed the Show Me State. No one knows why, but Santorum had a good show there with more than half the votes. Romney won about 1/4 there, and next Newt Gingrich was a no-show. His campaign failed to get their candidate onto the ballot. Well, CNN's political editor Paul Steinhauser, never a no-show for us. He joins us now from Washington. Wow, Rick Santorum, great for him.
This was a very, very big night for Rick Santorum. And Monita, every time you think you know what's going on in this race for the Republican presidential nomination.
When you've got all of this happening, Rick's not there. Thank you so much for that. Paul Steinhauser there in Washington. This is World One, live from London. Washington says $1.3 billion worth of U.S. military aid to Egypt could be in jeopardy. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, along with leading U.S. senators, threaten reprisals in Egypt, if Egypt brings charges against more than 40 foreigners it accuses of stirring up unrest with the help of overseas funds. Egyptian police raided a number of non-government organizations back in December, and this week authorities named the people they plan to prosecute. They include 19 Americans. One of them is Sam LaHood, the son of U.S. Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood. Egypt says the organizations illegally received foreign funding and accuses them of operating without a license. The U.S. gives Egypt $1.3 billion in military aid annually. Well, CNN senior international correspondent Ben Wiedemann is following developments in the Egyptian capital, Cairo. He joins us now with more on that. Ben.
Yes, Monita, well, this case is really getting big play in the Egyptian.
For their time, many young people who fled from the war in Afghanistan headed west, winding up as underage laborers in Iran. Now, Tehran is sending them back. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh is at Afghanistan's border with Iran, meeting some of the youngest refugees whose only idea of a future is surviving the next 24 hours.
Many have been grateful to leave Afghanistan, but few.
You're watching World One, live from London. Your days are numbered. Syria's president gets a warning from the U.S. Now, in our top story, a number of countries have pulled their ambassadors out of Syria, including 6 Gulf Arab states. Britain and the United States recalled their envoys on Monday. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations sent a blunt message to President Bashar al-Assad.
Your days are numbered, and it is
CNN has learned that the Pentagon has begun an internal review of U.S. military capabilities in the region. The procedure is considered a preparatory move to inform the president of his options if and when he calls for them. Barbara Starr joins us now from the Pentagon. What are we looking at here, Barbara?
Well, Monita, you said it exactly right. This is not yet looking at military.
Barbara, thank you. Barbara Starr there at the Pentagon. The violence has created scenes of desperation in homes where people are crying out for help. We have a report now from CNN's Ara Damon in the next hour. Well, now, sub-zero temperatures and heavy snow have taken the lives of more than 250 people as Europe's icy weather continues. It is one of the harshest winters the continent has seen in decades. Ukraine has been hit especially hard. 135 people have died, and Ukraine is denying its neighbor's accusation. It says the fault lies with Russia for delivering less gas than expected. CNN's Matthew Chance has been speaking to the Ukrainian energy minister, and he joins us now from Kiev with more on that. Matthew.
Peter, thanks very much. Well, it's right. There has been something of a spat between the Ukrainians and the Russians.
Thank you, Matthew Chance there in Kiev. Many want to know if there's any end in sight to this bitter cold spell. Meteorologist Maya Ramos is at the World Weather Center with that forecast. Mari.
Monita, the short answer is no. There is no end in sight. I wish I had better news.
All right, Mari, thank you very much. Sure. This is World One, live from London. It is down to the final 4 in football's Africa Cup. A crucial day in Harry Redknapp's football career. The manager of English Premier League side Tottenham Hotspur has been waiting for a jury to reach its decision in his criminal trial. Alex Thomas is here, and we understand we have a verdict. Breaking news.
Yeah, I had a nicely written script, and I might as well just throw it away because we've just had the verdict in the last few minutes. And great news for Harry Redknapp and Milan Mandaric. Reports that the two embraced in court after the jury found both men not guilty on both charges of tax evasion here in the UK. We'll hear from Atika in the next hour here on CNN.
Yeah, we have a special edition of World One coming up in the next hour, so we'll join you for that one. Thank you very much for that, Alex. You are watching World One live from London. This is World One live from London. We are approaching almost 7 a.m. in New York. It's almost 1 p.m. for you in Berlin. And it's almost 9 p.m. in Tokyo. And we want to take a look at what's trending on social media right now. At number 3, Europe's brutal winter. The freezing weather is one of the most popular stories on .com, CNN.com. We're getting so many reports from you out there. Rena Rottenbach sent in this picture. She says it's been so cold, the spray created waves on Lake Geneva, which sprayed onto the sidewalk and turned it into ice immediately. At number 2, Brazil versus Twitter. The Brazilian government is suing the microblogging site, saying it must suspend the accounts of users who tip off drivers about police roadblocks and radar traps. It comes just a couple of weeks after Twitter said it can start censoring information on a country-by-country basis. And at number 1, he's all the talk right now, Rick Santorum. His surprise win in 3 states has thrown the race for the Republican presidential nomination into, as he put it, a little bit of a no man's land. The former Pennsylvania senator is taking center stage online. He is one of the top searches on Google right now. Well, fun, as we all know, never gets old. Just ask Japan's graying game changers. CNN's Kyung La visited a Tokyo arcade to see how the over 60s are changing expectations.
In the hyper-animated shoot-'em-up world of Japan's video game arcades.
I'm bringing more now on a breaking story that's coming out of here in London. Harry Redknapp, the manager of English soccer team Tottenham Hotspur, was cleared of tax evasion and related charges by a jury. He was cleared today. We want to go now to outside the court, Southern Crown Court, and Atika Schubert, who brings us the latest on this. Was this does this come as a surprise, Atika?
It's good news for Tottenham Spurs fans. Not guilty on both counts of tax fraud or tax evasion. When the verdict was announced in court, both Harry Redknapp...
Thank you for that, Atika Schubert, there outside the Southern Crown Court here in London. Of course, Alex Thomas will bring us more a little bit later on in the next hour here on World One, coming up in just under an hour, I should say. You are watching World One live from London. We'll be back with much more in just 2 minutes.